Hey guys, what's up? This is that awkward moment where everybody come in, we join, we start the party. I can't wait for this to happen. In the meanwhile, I'll get some water for myself. But today is a very exciting day. It's a very important day. I was really looking forward to this, and we have none other than the world famous Greg Ellis with us. Greg has been a great friend for all the time that I can remember. I'll tell you a small story. Uh, I will only share that once Greg comes in. But let me tell you how I got introduced to Greg. So I think this was around 2011 or 12. I was in first year of college, and we were. I was called another bassist. Bashishpati is Greg here. Can he can you send me a hi? Yes. Greg's here, yes. So let's get him before I tell you this story. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we have Greg Ellis, none other than from Los Angeles, one of the world's greatest drummer, percussionist. He's played in tons of Hollywood films, Matrix Reloaded, Revolutions, 300, Iron Man. I mean, really, if you really want to know, just, I mean, go to Wikipedia, Google him, but he's played with a ton of musicians. He's influenced heavily from Mickey Hart. He's played with Zakir Ji. He's played with everyone. He's learned under with Bikram Ghosh. He's wonderful. Just let's just bring him on, and then I'll tell you the story. Hope he's here. I'm extremely excited, as you guys can see. Just really looking forward to this forever.
My
Hey
brother.
Greg,
Hey
what's
man. How
up?
are
Good to
you,
see
man?
you.
Yeah,
I'm
you
good.
too.
Good and alive. Good
Wow.
morning, wherever you are.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Good
Nice
morning.
morning here. Yeah.
Yes.
My brother,
So I
yeah, I just
was,
heard you starting to share this story.
I was going to tell you, let people know about the first one, how basically I met you.
Yeah.
I was in Calcutta and I was in college, and we heard that Greg Ellis is coming to Calcutta to give a percussion workshop. He's going to share his knowledge, and we were like, man, this is unbelievable. Is this really Greg Ellis, or is this someone else? So I remember asking people back at ICCR that is this really happening, because ICCR is on the way to my college, St.
Right.
Xavier's, where I was studying back. So then everybody said, yeah, Greg is actually coming, and I was like, okay, cool, let's do this. It's unbelievable. So we went, and there we sat. I still remember the room. It was a huge long room, and we
Yeah.
had Greg's setup, and I went and sat in the first bench because I didn't want to wait for anything. And the moment he started playing, I think he played before he spoke. He sat on the setup and he started playing, and we had a wonderful, I think, 5 6 hours. Greg, was it? We
Yeah.
spent a great time, and that's when I was a kid. Okay, so I was
Yeah, you
19
were
or
a
20
kid.
years old. I'm still am. So I went up to Greg and I was like, "Hey man, I really love your playing. I love your music. I've heard so much about you." And I don't know what came to my. I was like, "Will you please come to my pad,
Yeah.
my jam pad, and just play once?" And most of the times, I mean, I wouldn't do it because it comes across very creepy. But then here, but I don't know. I just felt a weird connection
I remember, yeah.
instantly. And Greg said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And next day, he was here. He came to my pad. He graced me with some music. He taught me a very important lesson of life: how to still be grounded and still, I mean, have that world of knowledge and still be grounded. And
Mm.
I was at awe, and I think we shared meals, and yeah, from that day we've
Yeah.
never looked back.
Well, the thing though about that sound beat was that, I have so many people after performance and workshops like that come up to me, and so many just kind of want more, and but they want more because they don't really know what to do, what they're doing. So that maybe if I give them more, they'll figure it out. But you came at me in a very different way. You didn't want more of me or what I was doing. You really wanted to know, and you told me, how do I get out of here? How do I get out? We were in your bedroom just talking. It's like, how do I get out of this little room? And then you were talking about maybe coming here, and we were talking about sponsorship and all kinds of things. But when it's somebody coming at me like you did, the fact of how you approached me told me you already know what to do. You're not looking for an answer. You're looking for maybe a little help, you know, and a little understanding. You weren't looking for somebody to figure out for you. And I remember that we reached a point where it's like, there's nothing more I can really do, you know?
I know, yes.
But then as we kept tabs on each other over the years and stuff, you did it, Sambi, you know, you found that way. No, let me tell you, you found your way out of that room, you know,
Yep.
and that room can be a metaphor. That room doesn't have to be the physical space you're living in. It's this room you keep yourself in your head of like, this is where I am and this is where I must stay unless I have some magic help me out of here. When instead, the only way out of there is more hard work. It's work you've never imagined, perseverance and commitment, you know? And that's what you've done. You found your voice, you found your space, you moved in, and then we got to share the story of how we reconnected in Mumbai, because that one to me is even more magical, you know.
I don't think if it wasn't for us, this would have ever A, been possible, and B, if this would have never happened, I wouldn't have believed in fate ever, because it generally, as you said, magic does not. But that afternoon was nothing less than magic. I mean, it was. So I'll just share a little bit, and I want Greg to also put his perspective because it's very interesting. So okay, so after that happened, we shared mails. Maybe unluckily, I couldn't arrange enough funds for me to shift, but I kind of left that room and I shifted to Bombay, where I stay, and then transition. I think another 7-8 years. Greg had come to India a lot more times, but he mostly came to Pune and Bombay. But I was still in Calcutta.
Right.
But this happens last year. Last year, I think 2020, right?
Yeah, no, it was 2019, summer of
19,
right? Yeah.
Okay. So I was having a regular day in my Bombay house, and I stay with my fiance Chitrangada, and she was like, "We need some groceries." So I went down, and so see, this very often happens that you don't really you don't turn around feeling that I know someone. And I went down to buy basic groceries. I think some fizz and some groceries. And I was holding the packet and I kept staring at this human being. And inside, you know, you're being a creep because that's not cool. I mean, here's one white guy and you're staring at him in the middle of the road. And I was like, man, and I didn't even clearly see Greg's face. It was his back. But I somehow was like, I know this man. And I'm an energy inside me was like, I must go ahead and speak to this man. And without even seeing his face, I went up ahead, and he turned and he immediately recognized like somebody. I was like, Greg, and that's under my house, and my building is called. It's named the Cosmos, right?
That's right.
And Greg had come to. I'm still getting goosebumps, man. I'm still getting like.
Because what's amazing, Sambit, is that we got to say why I ended up there. And so I was going to visit
That's
Darshan.
your perspective, yes.
I was going to visit Darshan. I came to speak at the All About Music conference at the Taj in Bandra.
Yes.
And I was doing a seminar with Bikram Ghosh. And so I was there for the few days. And Darshan, I don't think was at the conference, but Aditya had hooked us up and connected us. And so he said we should come by his studio. So I'm working on a documentary called The Click, as you know, and it's about like the click track in music. And Darshan's studio is called The Click. So I thought that was the synchronicity. I thought, oh my God, isn't that interesting? What a coincidence. So we get a taxi driver, me and Unmesh.
Unmesh, yes.
Right, because Aditya was, so Unmesh and I got in a taxi, and the taxi driver couldn't figure out where the studio was. So he drove past the studio and dropped us in front of this apartment building called the Cosmos. And I laughed because at first I saw the Cosmos and we're lost, and I just made this whole kind of thing in my head. I think that's the synchronicity, okay? And then there you are. And it's like, I just remember both of us like, Sambit, like, Greg, like, what the hell are you doing here in front of my apartment? And I go, I'm trying to find Darshan. You go, he's right down the road, man. And it was just so incredible because it was in a city like Bombay, in a city anywhere in India. the fact of just kind of randomly running into somebody in a city that size, but to be dropped off from a taxi driver that was lost was really the thing that made it so incredible for me. Like, we thought we were lost, but he dropped us exactly where we needed to go, in the center of the cosmos, and there you were. So I've totally riffed on this all kinds of ways, but it's this
Oh
one
yeah,
of those
yeah.
stories. And then we reconnected, you know, and
Yes.
then you connected with Darshan, and you knew Darshan, and this whole greater family emerged because of it. But
And
it's
we
just,
played. In the
and we
first half
played,
an hour,
yeah,
we started playing. We started
yeah.
playing. I mean, we didn't even, we were like, hey, let's catch up. We started playing.
No, let's
We
play.
met.
Me,
Yeah.
you, and
It
Darshan,
was,
and then his friends came from Raman's band, right? Who's the other percussionist that was there with us? Uh,
I've forgotten. I was just concentrating on the fact that this has happened this afternoon.
yeah.
And it was really
But we did. We
unbelievable.
immediately started playing, and that's the thing. And this is, I think, where I really connect these things. Is this one is so special. But I've had dozens of these over my life, of my travels and my work, of these connections with musicians and drummers, especially, where you just kind of. I ran into it in the airport, a drummer from the group Kodo, the Japanese taiko group. So
Yes,
I
yes,
worked on
yes.
I worked on an album with Mickey Hart.
Album with them. Yes.
And we both had the same floor tom case, carrying our drums and stuff, and on the trolley. And I looked at him, and I go, "Oh, drummer." And his wife, who spoke English, said, "Oh, he plays with Kodo." It's like, I've worked with Kodo, and we had this amazing brotherhood immediately, you know. And this is a special thing about drummers. I think the rhythm of the cosmos, literally, is
Wow. Wow.
translated through drumming. You know, this is why rhythm moves us, is because we're making sense of some other frequency or pattern in our life that music doesn't do, that our thinking, that our intention doesn't do, but rhythm does. When we're in rhythm, not in tune with the universe, when we're in rhythm with the universe, this is key. This is the heartbeat that connects us, you know? And this is why drummers have this connection. And you guys that I've played with, you know, the amount of actual physical time I've spent with you and someone like Darshan and all of you is minuscule compared to some other musicians and people I've worked with over my life. But I feel closer to you guys because of these connections like this, these things that happen, and this language that's understood in India that I share so often on these talks, that it's just the rhythm is part of this culture. And the only way Indian functions is because of its rhythm. Its internal rhythm is somehow seems chaotic to everybody else, but in the middle of it, it makes perfect sense. And that's like, you know, hardcore jazz or something. Like outside, it's like, but
Yeah.
inside it, man, you're in a groove, you know? And anyway, that's our connection, is because of that, to me, is lifelong now, because it's like that. Those are the kind of signs. It's like, it doesn't matter how much time, it's just that you guys keep connecting like this, you're going to continue on, you know? And it's a beautiful thing, man.
Wow, I think for everyone who's writing, I can see a lot of people saying that this is unbelievable. It actually is, guys. I mean, it was really, it's inexplicable a lot of
Yeah.
times, but it has happened, and as so well put by Greg, it happens with drummers, and I'll be honest, this has never happened to me. You're the first
Yeah.
human being this has ever happened to me with, and I'm so glad that it's you. And just start our session today.
Yeah.
Let's have a huge shout out to Gappu Cajons. They are one of the very most hardworking cajon percussion companies in India, made in India, wood in India, taught in India, and all the hard work that they're putting in. Greg, you have played. I'm sorry, we'll just come. We'll keep
No,
switching from
let's do
some
it. Let's go.
because we have a like a certain format which we'll
Yes.
follow, and then we'll come back to who we are, and we will keep doing that. But I'm sure it'll still stay, because how you've introduced, I think that's one of the greatest lessons that anybody who's been watching will definitely feed off. And yeah, it's a pleasure that you took time out early morning. What's the time right now
It's
in
not too early.
Los
No, it's
Angeles?
8:45. So yeah, it's not too bad.
It's a good time. I can hear birds.
Yeah.
They're also
Yeah.
waking
Right.
up. I can hear all the birds. So,
Yeah.
yeah, what just as I was saying, huge shout out to Kapu for arranging this. Huge shout out to Kapu for working so hard to create a name in the world of percussion. And coming to Kapu, Greg, you have what's your take on you, because you've played a cajon. I remember when we came last time
Yeah.
at the Flick.
My
Can we
whole
have?
my whole trip last time in India, the 2 months I was there, all I played, the cajon in my setup. For those of you who haven't seen, I sit on cajon and then I have my darbuka and djembe and frame drum and udu kind of set, in front of me like a kit. But the cajon is like my kick drum and my, the kick and snare
What
of my
drives the whole thing?
setup. Exactly. And so the bass tone of the cajon is crucial. And the way when I first played the Gappu, it was just it just was the best cajon I played. I mean, the bass tone when you mic it up is so incredible. But also just the natural feel of the wood, and Anirban and the guys at the company who, like you said, they work very hard. So I get back, of course, I had signed with the company, we want to be an endorser and stuff. And I get back
Yes.
from when I was in India 2 months in 2020, I got back on March 3rd into America, and 3 days later was lockdown here, and we know what happened after. So I still have yet to receive my cajon because it's been so hard for them to ship during COVID. But yes, it is something that I think they're fantastic instruments, and it's not, that we're just, I think we're with them because of that. We're not with them because they're giving us, all kinds of things and exposure and stuff. I think everybody who plays a Gappu is because they genuinely think it's the best cajon
For sure. Yes,
and I
yes,
fully
100%.
agree. Yeah,
100%.
fantastic
Because
instruments.
as so well you put about the bass tone, but I'm sure you've played a world of cajons throughout your life.
All
You
of
have,
them, yeah.
and Gappu probably is a very small company compared to the experience, the mammoth
Yeah.
experience that you have. So I think it's a great honor for them to be able to send you anything when you were in India, and they've always mentioned that they were overwhelmed when Aditya got you guys in touch, and they were so happy that you got to play because your experience, your hand matters a lot to them because any input that you give back
Sure.
to the company is taken so very seriously, which we 100% know, and the boys. So again, huge shout out to Anirban,
Yeah.
Pallav, to Aditya. We're not a huge team yet, and I love saying we because I consider them as brothers. Anirban is very hardworking. I've literally seen him in the past 6 years grow from nothing to right now having Greg Ellis at our chat. So this is also, as you said, leaving the room. So they
Yeah.
are also in a way trying to leave the room.
Yeah, right.
So for
Exactly.
I mean, we all, I mean, at our age, we all are kind of trying to
I know.
figure it out. Sorry, my phone keeps.
No, we'll talk more about that because I think there's an important thing there of recognizing at each step you get to, not where you've come from, but where you're going to, and I think that, with the way we reconnected, to me, it always shows, it's like a marker saying, yeah, you're on the right path. Forget about how long anything takes or how much is ahead of you. The fact that you have these meetings like this is showing you're on the right path. We're on the click, we're like, we hit the same one at that point, right? And that's pretty amazing that we went off for 4 or 5 years on our own rhythm, and we come back and we're still right in time with each other.
Oh man, yeah, that's, and I think we'll keep being at awe of that feeling of
Yeah.
wow, what connected us. So just to talk about your beginning as a kid,
Hmm.
why percussion? Why drums, Greg? Why not singing? That's easier. I mean, you don't have to carry a lot of gear, and you have a great voice. I remember you've told me.
uh,
So why not anything else? Not just singing. Why percussion? Why drums?
well, ironically, I did start off with trumpet. That was my first instrument, and
Okay.
I started playing trumpet at 9 years old. Um, I think my brother had done piano lessons and guitar lessons, and I was the younger brother, so I'd tag along and I'd try, and I never liked any of it. It was just, I didn't feel right on using my fingers. I needed my hands but anyway, I didn't think really took. But then we went to, my mom exposed me to a lot of music. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so this is like the late 60s, early 70s. I'm 9 years old in
Wow.
1973, so this was a time
Wow.
in the Bay Area of funk and
Historic.
R&B and
Yeah.
soul. Like the music scene was just incredible. And my mom, we'd go up to San Francisco and see a lot of concerts and do a lot of jazz concerts and jazz festivals. so horns were a big thing. So I
So
saw
this is what
trumpet.
age? What's your age at this point of
Well,
time?
this is from as young as I can remember. But this is about 9-10 years old now. When a
Wow.
brass ensemble came to my school in 3rd grade
Wow.
from the college, and they just played, and that trumpet just for some reason just resonated. And I went home and said, "Mom, I want to play trumpet." So we got a trumpet. I joined the school band, and everybody else had been in there for a year or two. But I just got it. And within 6 months, I was like first chair
Woo!
trumpet, and I became the soloist. And this is still 10, 11 years ago.
First chair,
But
yeah. That's big deal.
my band teacher recognized that the reason I was first chair wasn't necessarily because of technique. It's because my tone was very clear. He didn't hear the vibrato in my tone playing trumpet. It's very hard to keep a steady non-vibrato tone. And when you're nervous, it's like a voice. You hear that shaking and quivering. And so many kids were nervous if they played a solo, but I'd play it and he just heard it clear. So that was the first time some in that position told me, you may have something here. So I stayed on trumpet. I played classical trumpet actually through high school as well. But drums, I was going up to see, I think it was B.B. King up at a concert, great blues guitar player, and his drummer, his drummer had a Zildjian Earth Ride cymbal, the Earth Rides from back in the 70s. These were just amazing cymbals with a couple rivets in them, and he had this groove going with just like this earthy ride with the sizzle, and I was just like, what? My shift went right to the drummer. And I went home and I said, Mom, I want to play drums. So I learned to read music from playing trumpet. So I took the drum music home. I started learning the cadences and stuff. My brother had a little snare drum in the basement. Within a year, my mom bought me my first little used drum set. And
what kit was it? What kit was it?
It was a British kit called Olympia, and Olympia was like the economic version from Premier Drums in England.
Wow.
So it was this, and we called them giant root beer drops because they had this weird brown gold kind of swirl color and stuff. But within 6 months, my mom understood like I need a proper drum set, and my first kit. I love drum geek talk, man.
Yeah, for sure. That's tonight. That's what we're doing. That's all of what we're doing tonight.
So my first actual kit, I went to K&K Music in San Jose, and it was a Ludwig stainless steel.
Wow.
Now they only made the stainless steels from like I think 70 to 75 because they were so expensive to make. I still have it, yeah. And that was Bonham's kit. When you see Bonham playing the stainless steel. The sound of these drums were amazing, but the guy at the store thought it was a chrome set. He didn't realize it was solid stainless steel. So I got the thing for next to nothing because he just thought it was the wrapped chrome, like a chromo wood was the Ludwig kit back then, you know? So this was a solid stainless steel kit that I still use today. I actually used it on tour with Mickey Hart when I played with him. But
man, that's unbelievable. This story is unbelievable.
The instrument made me better, you know? I could hear now the sound of the drum on the sound of the records I was playing to. So I never had a teacher. Aside from school band, I put on headphones and I think the first record I learned to play to was probably Boston. And then I went to like Led Zeppelin and Van Halen. And I was just putting on headphones and I could hear, oh, there's a hi-hat. Oh, there's the bass drum. There's the tom. And
so you figured it all out.
I just kind of pieced it together. I heard the different, like trumpet, you're playing the singular line of music. So you're playing, you have your horn, you're playing your music. But on drum music, it's like each drum is a different note, essentially, right?
Exactly.
So it's piecing these things together and almost choreographing in a way and feeling that kind of, oh, I see, if I lead with my left hand. So I figured all this out on my own. And then I found Rush. And once I found Rush, this was probably sophomore year in high school. So we're talking like 80 or something. And so Permanent Waves had just come out. And
at the right time. You did it at the right time. Right?
And what that did was just like show me not just the level of drumming, of course, because I had gotten into jazz and I understood like, there's a level I'm so far from right now. But what Neil did was put it in context of the music. It wasn't just playing for playing's sake. He was actually composing his parts. Exactly. And you see his videos talking about how he constructs his things. It's almost like, dude, I get it, But he is so clear about these components being put together. And I could hear the composition in his playing. It wasn't just jamming. It wasn't just a fill here and playing the groove, you know. Every little kick and hat and splash cymbal was intended. So I really got into that. So I got deep into progressive rock, and that's when, about 16 years old, I realized, wow, I can actually play these kind of complex things, and people are realizing it. And I'm getting calls from college guys who want me to join their bands, and the older kids and stuff. And then so I thought I got a major in music. So I went to San Jose State University as a music major, but I was self-taught in that way. I didn't get music theory, and the rudiments were just things I'd already played in the music. I didn't practice them individually or
But you
separately.
never read music in school when you were, I mean, playing trumpet. Did you read rhythm
Oh yeah,
and melody?
and I read music thank God, because of my session work with films, the reading
Wow,
is
yes.
everything. No, I can sight read very complex charts now because of that. So but I also understood playing trumpet in an orchestra. I knew the role of the harmonies and the orchestrations, and I was really so the music I was listening to reflected that orchestral sense of arrangement, not just a
Exactly.
blues jam, you know?
Yep.
So I moved after about a year at San Jose State majoring in music, it just kind of, it was too regimented. It wasn't really my scene. And I'm playing in the orchestra, and I'm counting 80 bars of rest and then hitting a crash cymbal. And I'm like, this isn't really what I want to be doing, you know? So I had a copy of Modern Drummer, and I found an ad for, this was like
Oh man, which
the
year?
spring.
Which year? Which year?
So this is
Modern drama.
1983, no, 84.
Okay.
And it was an ad for Musicians Institute, for PIT, and
Okay.
in Los Angeles. And that it had just opened up the percussion school a few years before. But the teachers there were just like the best of the LA session guys, you know. Jeff
Wow.
Porcaro and his dad, Joe Porcaro,
Woo!
ran the school. And you're getting lessons with these guys, and these guys that are working, you know. And I remember then I said to my mom, I showed the ad, it's like, this is what I got to do. So after 1 year of college, that summer, I sent my audition tape in, and I got accepted, and I moved to Los Angeles at 20 years old and started at PIT. And within about 6 months, I was pretty much gigging and clubbing that, you know, making money and getting this. But then within a year of that, I got my first international tour through, again,
Man.
these random connections, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a band called David and David, and they were indie songwriter vibe, and they had a album out that got some notice. And so that was my first world tour at 22 years old. And
Wow.
that was it, you know. It was just, oh my God. And this is before internet or anything. So when you travel,
Yeah, yeah, for
you
sure.
were
This is
really traveling. You were like, oh my God, this is a different world. And the traveling, you know, so many people talk about getting into rock and roll to, you know, to get the girls and stuff. And that's like, I did it to get the travel. The travel I just got addicted to. It was like, my God, I can get paid to go around the world. That's what I wanted more of, is that kind of ability to have that life.
Exactly.
And clearly, you know, then 8 years later is when percussion came in. We'll get into that part. But
Yep.
anyway, so those were that's the trajectory of pretty much what got me from playing my trumpet in my bedroom at 9 years old to now traveling the world and being professional at 22.
So in your story, this one word keeps coming back, and it's created an impact in my head, and that's mom. For everything, you went back to mom. I want to play the trumpet. Mom, I want to play the drums. Mom, I want the drum kit. What's your relationship with? I mean, like? Can we have a little like a second, because that's I think that's very important, because a lot of Indians, luckily like me, I get that support from my father because he's a
Right,
musician.
right,
But a lot of Indians really face a lot. I mean, the biggest hurdle that they face is home. That's the first. And if home ground is secure, it
yep,
feels very secure as a musician in general. You don't have the basic insecurities. I mean, when you grow up, because a lot of people do beat that hurdle, they go against their family.
right,
But since that hurdle is always there, they don't feel complete. I've seen that in a lot of musicians' faces who are successful, but they're not complete. They're not happy
right.
because somewhere down the line, maybe they couldn't share that with their family. And I mean, what's so that one word, one human being keeps coming back in your story. And
Yeah.
can we just just hear a little bit about her? And because you keep going back to her for everything.
Well, it's interesting, and now so it's, you know, not having we had left my dad when I was 2 years old. We were living in San Francisco. My brother was 3 and my sister was 8. So there were 3 of us and my mom. And she moved south to a little town called Los Gatos. This is all Silicon Valley now. So this
Okay. Oh,
it's south of San Francisco, but Los Gatos is a small little town between Santa Cruz and San Jose. And this is all now Silicon Valley and the ritziest place in the world. Back then it was a very funky bohemian town, and so you had access to things then of music and not so much culture stuff because it was still a small town, but you had San Francisco right there. You had the ocean right there. So you could get the kind of, you could see how bigger the world was. You could see there's a lot more there. You weren't isolated in this small little town there. And my mom took full advantage, and she really stepped up and never remarried and just devoted her life to her kids and exposed us to everything, from skiing to surfing to anything that we wanted to do. And back then things were affordable. We had in no means had any kind of wealth. She actually ran a daycare center out of her home. She took care of kids.
wow.
And so,
Wow.
but she just had the support that was absolutely the reason I had any kind of confidence. Being self-taught, I always doubted myself. I always questioned it. But her support showed me that it's like, regardless, I'm here. And let's figure it. If you figure it out, I'll help you. I can't figure it out for you, but I'm here. And so anything I did with my life was like really, we were like partners almost, And I last trip I went to India, I did a lot of school sessions through Torrens Academy. I did seminars and workshops at a bunch of different schools through Pune. And I remember the kids asking about wanting to get professional and how to do it. And a lot of the parents were there at the seminar too. And I started talking to the parents. I go, well, it's up to you to practice. But I go, to the parents, your support is what's going to do it.
Exactly.
These instruments are loud and you're going to let them practice. You have to, it's that support of the parents, of acknowledging that this is something that is a beautiful gift, just like the gift of a great lawyer or doctor. There are very many mediocre ones, but the ones that are stellar, there's a gift there that needs to be nurtured. And there's nothing about music that should be looked at as lesser than any other attempt at a profession, and not everybody who graduates law school becomes a millionaire lawyer. Not every doctor becomes, So we have this weird vision, but my mom never questioned that. So after I got my first tour that I mentioned, we talk about how to get your first gig. The first gig isn't that hard if you have your talent and you have your drive. The hardest thing is getting the second gig.
Exactly.
I got home from that tour and I'm like thinking, okay, great. Now the tour is done. The gig is done.
First one, you still could have been lucky. Second is you. It's because you get the second game because you.
And you have to know what you're doing now. This isn't just now relying on these random connections. And it was like, holy shit. So I had a year after my first world tour that I'm like, on MTV videos with this band and stuff. And now I have a year and there was nothing, And my mom was treating it like my college education. So she said, if I was going to help, fund your college, then I'm going to help fund this over the next couple of years.
That's brilliant.
And so again, like I say, we didn't have the kind of money that would happen. So that gave me the drive to want to have that time last as little as possible. And so my mom, though, what she just gave me the sense that, and not in a dreamer way of you can do anything, but she gave me a sense that, it's hard to say that really like the world is yours to make what you make of it. It's yours to design. It's not yours to like take over and conquer, it's yours to be a part of. And so she lived vicariously through me because she always wanted to have that world of travel and everything. So she could see me around the world and do these things. And, she's as special a person in my heart as anybody, as all moms are. But my mom really is someone that just understood I was a little different. And I needed that little knowledge of just like, I'm here. And, if it's rough, we'll be there for you. And that commitment, I think, is just is beautiful. You're not funding vacations or anything like that. You're really getting your life going. And she was paramount in letting that happen for me.
That's incredible, man. This is to a lot of kids who are watching. I think a lot of times you can communicate because we also, because this has happened to me as a kid, as a teenager, you get I mean, anger comes very natural when you face a little bit of a hurdle. As he said, keep your practice on. Definitely, that's very important. But if you feel you're facing hurdle, try and communicate. Try and see if communication helps. And yeah, that was, I think it was a very wonderful story. And I mean, very often you don't get into. I thought, I mean, it's since you kept saying that, it's just that sound kind of resonated a lot. So I thought let's just bring a little bit back
Yeah, I appreciate that.
of that human being who's made this happen, because that's very important, and it's always important to have gratitude inside yourself to
That's right.
complete
That's right.
that circle. Coming back to reality and questions,
Yes.
we have a lot of questions
Yeah,
from
let's
the
get to
Gappu
some.
team. The Gappu team, we did a question round where we asked people to drop in questions. First of all, I'd like to apologize to everyone that we can't take all of your questions. We took because there were very specific questions like hand technique. This is not a workshop
Yeah.
live class. This is more get to know each other, so that kids who are growing up get to hear people like Greg and himself and the experiences. And these stories are also, I think, very important in building you as a human being, because that is what you translate to back to the instrument.
Right.
And a question that we got the most was, what's been Mickey Hart's influence in your life? And I'm sure you were waiting for this, because that's something that intrigues everyone. And for the ones who don't know Mickey Hart, I'm sorry, but for the Dead fans, I mean, for all the Deadheads out there, I
Yeah.
mean, you definitely know what we're talking about. So what was Hart's influence in your life? Because I'm sure, because there was a point that you changed into percussion, into
Right.
hand percussion. So what drove that inside you? What was the feeling? Can you just express a
So
little bit?
that Mickey Hart is, similar to my mom in that way. Not being raised with my dad, uh, I didn't have that. You certainly know with your father. I mean, it's a different love, and I have my daughter, and I know how the mother and father have a different dynamic with their kids. I never had a father dynamic. I never had that kind of father kind of support. Everything was from mom, but mom wasn't coddling me or making me precious. She was giving me her toughness because she was a tough woman too. But still, there was so I never had that kind of connection, and I was finding that with older musicians I was playing with, but it was more like a big brother kind of relationship, almost like like what we have here and stuff, where it's guidance and stuff. But you're cool, man. You don't need me, but yeah, man, I can share anything you want. So I was on tour at that time. I was playing with a rock band here in LA, but traveling the world. We had a couple songs on the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure soundtrack. And so we
Wow,
got some notoriety for that. So we were touring, opening for like Guns N' Roses and LA Guns around LA, and then touring and stuff. And it was like a full on
unbelievable.
rock scene at that time. And it was, we had just
This is
finished
the
a show.
80s? Are you talking about the
This
80s?
is late 80s, so 88,
Late
yeah.
80s.
Yeah.
Hair metal, glam metal.
And so we weren't like glam or hair, but we had the hair, but it was like, it was like good hard,
Yeah, you
it was
had
like
long
good
hair.
hard
I've
music.
seen some photos. Yeah.
But it wasn't like the glam stuff like Poison or anything. It was a legitimate band and good hard rock, and we got great reviews from critics and stuff, and that's why we never became super successful, because
Hmm.
we didn't really have that kind of. It was about the music.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
anyway, so I would just finish a big show with that band in Arizona, and it was my birthday, and the guitar player had a birthday a couple days before, and his sister had sent him a copy of a book called Drumming at the Edge of Magic by Mickey Hart. Now, I knew Mickey Hart from the Grateful Dead growing up in the Bay Area. I was never a Deadhead. I appreciated the band, but I was a rocker. I was into Led Zeppelin, not the
For
Grateful
sure.
Dead,
Same here. My
But
dad's more of a deadhead.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, now I have a full. I completely understand the Grateful Dead after working with Mickey. But back then, it wasn't really my style. So I was connected to Mickey from this book. And this book was part autobiography, but it talked about the history of rhythm and the spiritual side of rhythm in the world and how that got lost in Western culture. Drums in the West, drum set can be ritual, but the spiritual connection of percussion, it's a very different thing when you're on a kit or when you're on a tabla or a frame drum or
Exactly.
darbuka. You have a different kind of connection with your hand on the drum and stuff. So I had never, literally, I was 24 years old and I just hadn't heard. I had Indian food. I had never heard Indian music at that point. Literally, had not heard Indian music at that point.
You like Indian food?
Oh, I can eat anything, man. This is like street samosas, anything, man. I'm good with all of it. But
Sure.
Anyway, so I read this book and it just opened up my world. I started buying CDs that he recommended, and the first CD I bought was Rhythm of Indian Drums with Zakir and Ala Raka. And
that's one of the iconic CDs of all time, or forever. Yeah.
My head blew. And then I heard the Nagara ensemble from Pushkar as well, and all these instruments that it was this compilation of different rhythms and ensembles. And it blew my world apart. So I got home from that tour. I bought a little 4-track recorder. I had collected some percussion instruments and I started recording them, and I could hear music in these drums more than a drum set. Drum set's not really a solo instrument musically. It's it can be, but it's really not. And percussion can be completely melodic. It can be completely tonal. And so I started learning this and I started getting into composition, and that's when I started getting like attention of some film composers, and I started a group called Voss that was a world music group, but all this was because of Mickey's book. So then 10 years later, this group Voss that I had started with an Iranian singer and myself, and we released 5 albums on Virgin Records, and it was successful, a mid-level like world music kind of new age group that we had enough
and
money
this is the mid-90s. Now you're talking about the mid-90s.
Exactly, mid-90s. And in 98 it was our second album, and Mickey had contacted somebody at our label that had worked with him, saying he's looking for singers for a CD he's producing for Kodo, and the CD I talked about. And Zakir is going to be on it, and Giovanni and Aerto, and it's just like Planet Drum with Kodo. And he wanted some singers, and so it made me so mad because like, wait, I have the connection to Mickey. How come you get to go sing with him? But our friend at the label kept kind of pushing both of us, and he kept listening to the music, and he said she would show me the emails, and he said on one of them, the drummer doesn't sound so bad either. Why don't you bring him along? So then Mickey was down here at the Grammys, and he had just won the first World Music Grammy for Planet Drum. Wow. And he was here at a Grammy ceremony visiting LA and contacted me and said, can I come by your house? I have 10 minutes. Can I come by your house and we can talk about the session? And I'm like, oh my God, this is 10 years. So this is like our thing that we're talking about now.
Unbelievable.
This is 10 years after reading his book, and now he's coming to my house. And so it was like 8:30 in the morning. He literally had 10 minutes, and he comes up. I live on I'm high up. This is the roof of my house right here. But he comes up the stairs.
He came to this very house.
This spot here, yeah. And came into my studio to look at my instruments, and he has every drum you can imagine, but he just wanted to, I played the nagadas. He's like, wow, bring the nagadas. My udus, wow, bring the udus. So now we get to the studio, and I walk in a week later at his studio up in it's north of San Francisco, and as I walk in, all of Kodo is sitting in the control room, like 17 of them. Mickey's at the at the mixing board, and Zakir is in the booth tracking.
Ah, man, I can't imagine what you went through at that moment.
And I'm just like, who the hell am I, man? What am I gonna add here? So my first tracking was with I was on my kit, my percussion kit, and I had headphones, and Mickey had played something they had laid down. This is 30 minutes after I drove up from LA, and I start playing, and he's like, yeah, it's good. He's like, Zak, he calls Zakir Zak. He's like, Zak, go sit next to Greg. You play the frame drum next to Greg on his kit. So within 30 minutes, Zakir is literally shoulder to shoulder with me. He's on the frame drum, and I'm on my udu. And we're tracking to this song, to this groove, and I'm freaking out. My eyes are closed. And there was one moment where this little fill happened. I'm comfortable. I'm in the groove, and I do this little fill on my udu, And Zakir just kind of opened his eyes and looked over at me and then looked right back, and he heard it. And it was like permission. He said, yeah, that was right, you know?
Wow. Wow.
And without saying a word, he
I'm
completely
getting
allowed me
goosebumps.
to now be who I am. And now it's like all I cared about was the one. Just keep the one and you're going to be fine here. You have a reason. And I found it. And I started leading tracks with the Udu, and Zakir would be on tabla, or Madal Tarang kit that he had. The Kodo guys are on all their stuff. And then Giovanni comes in, and then Aerto comes in. And
Yeah.
it's just, this is like, oh my God, I am with the
You feel you've
E05,
arrived.
you know?
You've arrived. I've arrived.
That's
You
right.
have that feeling.
So I ended up working with Mickey for 6 years after that, touring with him, recording with him. And he still thought I was a deadhead, which is why I was so into him. And I think it's got nothing to do with your music. It's your words, man. Your book completely opened me up to this world of percussion that I would not be here with had I not read. I'd still be playing. I was at the top of my game as a rock drummer, you know. So at 28 years old, when I read his book, I started at the beginning again. And this is what I wanted to share earlier about the steps that we reach, you know. I thought at 8 years into a career, I'm touring the world. I have my first wife was a soap opera actress. I'm like living this Hollywood life, you know. And here's my life ahead of me, right? No. 28, so now I'm on percussion. And it's like, to get into that world without being traditionally trained, I had to offer something deeper than the technique. There's no way I could keep up with any of you guys on tabla, you know. Because I didn't study it from that point. My head had music in a different way.
Yes.
My
Yes.
thinking was drum set. How do I take this feeling from drum set and put it into percussion? And
Wow,
that's
so
what
good.
so everything when I play now, I still hear kick and snare in my head. I'm not counting or playing these traditional patterns.
So weird. It's tabla in my head. It's so weird because
See?
exactly what you said. Because
It's your
I'm
first
sorry. I'm
language.
sorry to cut you off.
No, continue,
Because
please.
it's always so wonderful to hear these things. But I remember the same feeling I had. I had a discussion with a friend of mine, who was the first person to point out that you're not only a drummer on the drum set, you're a tabla player on the drum kit. And that's when I was like, I almost took it as an insult because this is school. I'm
Yeah.
raging with blood. I mean, testosterone is high. I mean, we're in the room and it's hot and we're playing. We don't have ACs. We never had ACs back in the day. So no fans and we're playing. It's hot. We're sweating. And you know how hot Calcutta can get, you know,
Yes, I
how
do.
sweaty. Yeah. So here we are, we're playing and he's like, man, you sound like a tabla player. And now after 20 years, no, sorry, 13 years of that, I told him thank you because he didn't realize how he changed the perspective. So I've always had that in my mind that I'm a tabla player. And I also had that insecurity, Greg, just to share with the world that
Yeah.
I was like, I will, as you said, that you might be better on the tabla. And I completely resonate that feeling because I always thought that drummers in the West will always kind of have that better feeling because they grow up like how you said you grew
Like
up
that,
listening to
exactly.
BB King's drummer, and I mean it's a part of your evolution as a drum kit. I mean drummers right now in America will be like the 15th or 16th 20th generation drummer, but I am the first generation in my family. I'm the first generation drummer.
That's
In
right.
some families they might be the second generation drummer. So this
Yeah.
is and we've just walked in when it comes to the language. So I think these feelings of how we overlap and how we don't realize a lot of times what we play, and to hear your story of being arrived at a place, I can't really I don't know how that feels because I've never felt
Yeah.
that to stand beside Zakir ji and to I've never, but I have played in front of him, but I've never, I mean, so that's a dream. That's really a
Yeah.
dream. It's also a dream to play with you someday. We did play in a pad, but we've never played like a
No, a
gig.
proper
So
gig with us.
yeah,
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 I
yeah,
really hope so
yeah.
someday we can.
Yeah, same here. So Aditya, if you're listening, you know what to do. Aditya. So coming back to your relation with Z, that was the second question that we received, and this question Aditya received in his page, and he
Mm.
forwarded to us. So thank you, Aditya, for the question. He asked, I mean, not him. Someone asked. He's writing. You have said that Zakir Hussain and Ustad Allah Rakha Khan Qureshi have also been huge influences in your life, and that's what drew you to India. How
Yeah.
was it playing at Abaji's Barsi, and what's your relation with Zakir ji?
Yeah, well, it's a perfect follow-up because that connection with Mickey, Mickey's interesting. Mickey's a very good drummer. Like, he's the best drummer for the Grateful Dead. I say this a lot of times when people talk about the best drummers, and Ringo Starr comes up all the time. Like, listen, it doesn't matter how good Ringo is to anybody else. Nobody else could have played in the Beatles but Ringo Starr.
Ah, for sure, for
You
sure,
know,
for sure.
Chris Frantz from the Talking Heads, like these very simple drummers, and it's not about technique. But what Mickey has is he's so connected to the soul of rhythm, and his time can be kind of like, shifting here and there. So a lot of times live we'd have to play the click track, which was a real drag. But it was really Mickey has this internal sense of rhythm. But what Mickey does is bring these people together and equalizes everybody. So in those sessions, whoever was leading something, that's the leader of the session now. It was never about like always, we have to be bowing to Zakir or having Kodo do their thing. It was who's going to take the lead here, like a good
Oh
jam,
wow, wow.
So he has this amazing ability to get everybody on the same level, that we're all here for the music now, not to show each other what we can do. So this isn't chops anymore. This is about musicality, and that's why you're all here, because you're all musical drummers. You all understand composition, and so Zakir and I had just a connection for the few days in the studio. He'd come out a couple times on the road and sit in with us here and there. But if I would see him, here in LA, he'd come to play, and I would go to the concert and go back in the dressing room, and everybody's touching his feet, and this whole thing, and I see him, and he comes over to me and he touches my feet, and he's just like,
Oh,
because he's just so humble, and he's a
yeah.
very funny guy as well. And so he would do that just to mess with people. Like, so now
And I think his
everybody's
incredible sense of humor in the playing really, I think, adds to that whole, makes him completely different than anyone in this universe. I mean, no
like,
disrespect to anyone, but it's just
no, but like
unbelievable. As you said, his sense of
yeah.
humor is it's unbelievable.
Because the best masters to me are playful in that way, because they're really showing you what you can digest in a performance. They're not playing what they can do, and probably what they would do would be imperceptible to us because of what they could actually do with their music or rhythm. And Zakir is like that. He always has this thing like, you think that was amazing? Like, okay, check this out. And now he just keeps escalating it. But he understands how that edge, and when to pull it back. And what to offer. He's so musical in his technique that what he never ever overplays, even though it can be so much and so dense. He knows how far we can take it, and then he stops and just boom, 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 and then he's back into the groove. So we had, I think more of a subconscious connection of recognizing each other. We didn't socialize or anything like that. So the last time I saw him was probably 2008, I would think. So I was planning my trip with Aditya to come to India January to March 2020, which I was there for the 2 months. And so February 3rd was the Barsi event for Ala Raka. And right before I left on the trip, like in December, Aditya said, a lot of times they bring in guest drummers for the event. Why don't you reach out to Zakir? And I was like, I haven't talked to him in years, over 10 years. Like, do you really think? And I did just see what happens. And so I sat with it for about 2 weeks, like really nervous to even send an email. And then I finally just said, no, I'm going to explain why I would feel honored to be there. So I wrote him not a long email, but I just said, I'm coming to India. I would not even have this relationship with this country had it not been for you and your father. And this first CD that I heard, I shared the story, what I just shared with you, and how you opened me up to this world of rhythm that made me realize myself. I didn't become a student of Indian music. I became more of a master of global rhythm in a way. You
Wow.
recognize something in me. And I just shared this really concise and not creepy or anything, but just really like, I really appreciate everything. And to be on that stage in any capacity to honor your father would be, I would be at your service. And I swear within 20 minutes, I got an email back from Zakir, not his assistant, from Zakir saying, how many inputs do you need? There wasn't even a question. And it blew me away because it's like I knew he has a photographic memory as well. His memory is phenomenal. You know rhythmically what he remembers, but it was just so immediate. And then he shifted me over to the production team, and I didn't talk to him until the gig. But there's a picture I posted on Instagram of Zakir and it's I had just gotten to the venue for the Barsi, and you just see this piece of the two of us, like, again, finally we meet again, you know. So then he says, I'm going to open up the night set, the evening set. Originally I was going to go on second or third, but then he said, no, you're going to open it up. You have 15 minutes. And we had this crazy sound check with all kinds of, you know, with all the bands, and Darshan's Salim Merchant and his band.
I know, I was there.
Yeah,
I was there. I was there.
And,
Yes.
you know, 40 mics, 80 mics having to be sound checked and stuff. And so I had like literally 2 minutes to sound check.
I know, I saw the whole thing. It's incredible. It's incredible.
And we were also about an hour late already.
Mad set. Yes.
And so he gave me
unbelievable.
I was going to have 20 minutes, and he said 15. He said, okay, you got 13 minutes. And I think I actually played for about 12 minutes and 45 seconds. I think I got right to the 13. But anyway, the whole point is Zakir to me is someone with these relationships that I have that if I would love to see him as much as I can in the years coming. But our relationship is like
same here. Yes.
You know, because he recognized me. This is what I keep talking about. Maybe that was a thing with my mom, and that's the thing with Mickey. We don't need validation. I think that's a separate thing. Validation is like is feeding maybe an insecurity. What we need to be is recognized, you know?
Wow.
And I was recognized not just for the drumming that I do, but for the person I am, for the musician I am. The recognition is the whole thing. It's not just, you know, validation of being a good drummer. It's recognition that you belong here, that there's nowhere else you need to be but right here. And that's what Zakir gave me in a way twice in my life that let me know I can own this knowledge I have and present it to the world on this same level, because he said, yes, you are here. And I'll never forget, after that performance, it was like, you know, what meal do I cook Zakir? If I have, have him over for dinner, out of all the dishes I could cook, what would I cook him? And that was like my solo. I was just thinking, like, what am I going to offer here? And I just went completely improvised. Everything I thought I was going to do was tossed out the window, and I just started playing. And it was just, again, the honor of someone like him for that event. But I was in tears afterwards because I realized the magnitude of what just happened. It was really a phenomenal experience for me. You know,
and you played an incredible set. I'm nowhere in judge to say what, but it was an incredible set. I mean, we felt what we did, and I was right in the wings. I remember I saw you straight. I still have a video of you performing. It's incredible. It was just incredible. And I remember I saw how fast the sound check was and how things were so hasty. And I mean, it's normal for some of us back here, but how calm you were, how content you were before going on stage, and it was just unbelievable. So coming back to that, I would like to not take all of the fans' questions. This is my day, my time with you. So here are some of my questions. I'll be that selfish, you know.
But everyone is saying hi personally. I'm just saying hi to everyone here.
Yes,
I know
there's been a lot of a lot of people have dropped in a lot of
here too.
questions.
So anyway, so go ahead.
No, please. No. One thing that I keep hearing in your solos, videos, improv plays a very important role in your playing, as you said right now, immediately, which is what brings me to this question. And so, well, I mean, the transition wasn't. I planned the question, you didn't, so you brought it in. How much role does an improv play in your sets where you play a solo? Because a lot of times you have to play what's written, as you said, you follow charts. So when you're playing for a film, when you're playing for a session, when you're playing for someone else, basically, you have to follow a chart. And you said you're very good at reading charts, which means you're good at following also. But when you're playing a solo set, you don't prepare the solo set, right? You don't.
No, never.
There's no. So I mean, because I remember when back in ICCR, when you played in Calcutta, you played almost a straight 30-minute solo, and we were and you begun with It was such a, I mean, it was such a meditative, spiritual feeling because it began more than rhythm. You began with sounds. You were playing
Yeah.
with sounds. You're playing with the resonance. It's just, I mean, whoever's seen, they know. So how much does that play a role in your music when you are playing? Not when this is, we're not talking about sessions. This is
Right.
your solos. How much does that play? Improv. What's it for you?
So I shared this with, I did a YouTube live with Mahesh Vinayakram recently, and
Yes.
you know, Viku-san, and he's just, I love Mahesh, and I was sharing
Yes,
this
he's
story
incredible.
of coming to India, and not being a student of Indian music. What it's like, and I do cooking. I can use some, you know, cooking metaphors because I think they're appropriate.
Same.
It's like tasting the food and figuring it out through the taste, not through the recipe, you know?
Exactly.
So when my first trip to India was in 1998, and I went as a tourist and started in Nepal and I was there for 6 weeks and then came through Pushkar. I connected with Natuji and got my Nagadas, and that whole world of my life opened up. But I was just a tourist, and I came back and went to Ricky Ram, and I got my tablas and I got my tambura, and I was coming home, and they had hooked me up with a teacher here, and I was going to study tabla. And you know, it was like the first lesson. It wasn't knowing how difficult the instrument is, but I realized I was almost, you know, I was like 35 years old at that point, and I knew that 10 years of practice, maybe I'd be a good American tabla player. I never wanted that, but you would always hear my accent. I wouldn't have been able to learn the language, and because I started too late, you would have. I didn't want to be a novelty, you know. And I think so many Western
Mm.
drummers that come to India are coming through being a student of Indian music. And so someone like Steve Smith or Bozio or these guys that come and can really keep on with the you know, the forms and the whole know the T-highs and everything. It's still kind of a this and this. You don't really hear the blend of it. And so I said, in talking to Mahesh, I said, I think when I play my solos and I improvise, I'm looking to discover something in myself that I've never heard or done before. And that usually kind of means I've put myself into a corner and I got to get out of it. Like, okay, I'm speeding up, going super fast. Like, you can't just keep going like this for another 5 minutes. What are you going to do, man? You know? And then all of a sudden this shift happens and it's like, boom. And I just like jump on another wave.
Mm.
And think of surfing. If you're riding one wave, when that wave closes out, your ride is done. Think if you were
Done,
riding
yeah.
a wave, and then as that wave was closing out, you could actually jump to the wave behind it and now start riding that wave.
Wow.
It's that kind of visual that I have in my head. I think visually like that. So the improv is never just winging it. I have a sense of what I want to convey, but I never have a starting point. And when I play with Indian musicians, the best ones are the ones that allow that to happen. And
Wow.
inevitably, I did a performance in Pune called Under the Tree, Aditya's festival,
Yes.
and I played with Shakir Khan, sitar player,
Okay. Yes.
and um, we had practiced a few days before, and he was showing me a T-high. We were doing this thing in a 10-beat cycle or something. And anyway, he had heard me do a solo at the performance right before he came on. So this is the night this is what we were going to do. And he sat down, and next to me, after he heard me do my solo, he just looked at me and said, "Man, let's just jam." You know?
Yeah.
We threw everything out the window, and we just connected in this really beautiful rag that he knew I
Wow.
could understand, but it's just understanding, like, you know, let's not always rely upon what we've learned. You
Wow.
know, let's not think that that's the room that we're in. How do we break out of that and take what we've learned, not to create something new and think that there's but just go somewhere that we haven't been before. Let's get off this path that's designed for us. And the best musicians I play with are the ones that do that without question and realize, yeah, I can learn a T-high, but if you want my mind engaged with that T-high and not anywhere else, I'd rather not,
Exactly.
you know? We can end another way, and if we really want to rehearse a piece and do it, I'll learn it. But it's not I think that especially drummers, we don't need to the legacy is rhythm. The legacy is not technique. You know, the legacy is what
Wow.
the rhythm makes you feel. It's not. So I think on Instagram today, so many of the drummers that are just mad technicians, you know, I don't hear the music. I don't.
Com-
They're
Same.
known for their technique and their playing or cover songs, but not known for their contribution to music.
Exactly.
Every
Exactly.
great drummer pre-social media I can mention, you'll know the band they play with. Stuart Copeland, it's the Police. Alex Van
Police.
Halen, John Bonham, Neil
On
Peart.
Bonham.
You don't know
Rush.
these guys away from their music.
Nope.
Tony
They're
Wilson,
one. They're one.
Elvin Jones. Let's go all the way back, you know?
Papa
And
Joe
now when you
Jones.
think of Zakir Hussain, it's the same thing. You know him because of his
Exactly.
performances with Shiv Kumar and Ravi Shankar and the you know, Ali Akbar Khan and you know his music, right? So my improvisation, I'm composing. I'm not showing off here. I want to take you on a journey. And so I create this kind of theme in my head, what I start with, and I just build on that. And just like any composer does a variation on that theme, I'll build it. So if you heard the first minute of my solo and the last minute separated, you wouldn't think they had anything to do with each other. But if you hear the whole thing, you'll
Whole
see the
thing.
transitions and how it
It's a
all has led
story.
to that. Exactly right, story.
Wow, that's brilliant. And I think that's what like-minded people kind of connect with. Because I remember back also when you came to Calcutta, and there have also been so many other occasions where I've met so many other percussionists, musicians. Also, when you were in Calcutta, there were other percussionists and drummers who were also doing workshops. But
Right.
somehow, you were the one. It
Yeah.
kind of felt it felt like that, and you felt family, and you. I mean, it's just it's it's not very easy to always let other people in because there's so many things inside you already. You have so many
Yeah.
things built inside you. But with you, it was always a feeling of I have to share, which is why I mean maybe the first thing I said was how do I get out? So yeah. Anyway, so let's just when we began the live conversation, you spoke about your documentary Click.
Hmm.
Can we hear a little bit more about it? What's the idea? Why the click? And what's your relationship with the click? And what is click about?
I've had this in my head for over 10 years, the idea for this film. And I keep seeing each year that it doesn't get fully made. I think, oh my God, it's taking so long. But then I see where culture and society is going.
It's
Had I
changing.
made this film 5 years ago, I would have been, hypothesizing on things that are actually happening right now in terms of our dependence on the idea of the click. So the click it's funny. It has different meanings in relation to technology. It's the click of a clock. It's the click of the mouse, but it's the click track in music. And so I really, the idea of the film, I've talked to different producers. I've shot some footage of it. It's still in the works of hopefully, getting out at some point. But the idea of it is, some people think, well, it should be called rhythm or it should be called, drumming. It's like, no, this isn't about either. This is about the click track and what happened when the click track was put into music in the late
Recording.
80s when I first started my career. When I first started, it was still the drummer's choice. The engineer would ask the drummer, do we need a click track on this?
Oh,
And
oh, what's that? That's never
it
happened
wasn't,
in my
there
life.
was, this is before Pro Tools. You were still on tape, So you would get an engineer who'd said, how do you feel? No, I'm cool on this. I got this. But if there was a long break in the song or there was a tricky arrangement, then yeah, why don't we try a click? But it was a tool. It wasn't this like judge and jury of timekeeping.
Ah,
So even playing to the click, you weren't looking at the grid. Music was still audible. It wasn't visual then. So you couldn't see a millisecond. You couldn't hear a millisecond off of a click track. Now
wow.
you can see it. And we have this
Yep.
visual thing that, oh my God, that's off. So I got to line it up. If you
Hmm.
close your eyes and listen, chances are 80% of what you think you have to line up visually, you won't even hear. It's just a groove, So there was the click was literally just a tool. But once Pro Tools came in, now every session had to start with a click. And even if you didn't play to it, the first track that comes up when you open a Pro Tools session is click.
Hmm.
And so
Yes, exactly.
what the click did was give us the first dependence on time. Even with a metronome, you would practice to a metronome before the click track. but you would never have the metronome mic'd up in your headphones when you were recording the song. You practiced it to keep your time, but you didn't rely on it when you're actually tracking the music. And what happened with the click track is now drummers have to have this in their earphones it has to be louder than your own kit. It has to be louder than so now you're not playing to the bass player, you're playing to the click track.
Yep, exactly.
And I started realizing the metaphor of it is now similar in our lives. The click track is that same. We're dependent on how our prompts for our emails and our social medias. These things rule us over any experience. So we can be in the most incredible experience of our life, but our phone buzzes and, oh my God, I have to reply to this. That's like cutting and pasting and editing in music. So I took this metaphor, that's our click track in life.
Wow.
Everybody has this thing that it's like, wait, I'm jamming with the bass player here. I don't care if I'm off with a click. But the engineer is saying, so the engineer being the Steve Jobs and the Bezos and all these guys that are the Zuckerbergs, these are now the producers, and it's their click track generating that all of us now are on the exact same time. And this is unprecedented. We've never, my watch can't run 5 minutes fast. Everybody knows if I'm 1 minute late, Wow. So that's the pressure I feel when I play with a click track. I feel a pressure. It doesn't ease and make anything easier for me. I now have another responsibility that has nothing to do with the music. So it's like being in a meditation class with your newborn baby there crying. It's like, where's your loyalty at this point,
Yeah, exactly.
But the click track, you can't deny it. The click track is that crying baby. It's like, no, I'm here and I need you right now. So you're going to play to me. We don't have an option anymore. So now it's how good a drummer can play to a click track. I can luckily play to a click track very well, so I've kept working. There are many R&B and soul drummers in the 80s that I've interviewed that just, they never had to let some fool with a cowbell not moving back there be the guy that they follow. They would create the groove. But now they couldn't follow a click track, not because they had bad time, but because they couldn't play like a machine. So the click really enabled us to now dance to a machine. It enabled us to create with a machine and create this dependency to the device, which is what the metaphor is now. So these devices are a click track. And all I'm saying is let's find space off the click, How do you have your experience in nature and in real time without this clock measuring every second of your experience? And it's become a much broader thing than just about music and rhythm. It's now the click track of our lives that we are all kind of, adhered to.
Wow. My experience was, share a minute of it. So basically, when I was growing up, I was learning tabla from my dad, and in Indian system, there's nothing called a click or a metronome. Your guru is your click. He keeps time.
The time. That's right.
He keeps time. He keeps the kalis and the talis. He judges whether you're playing faster or slower, which is according to his judgment. Because as you said that you're not supposed to be, we're not training robots here. We're not training.
Right.
We're training human beings, and since Indian system is such it's an audio system of learning. It's not a writing system of learning. Right. Even the syllables that we say dha, din, dha, na, tin, these are all sounds that the drum actually makes. So I remember for longest period of time, I think because I started playing when I was 2, and from 2 to my journey of reaching 18 and starting to play drums, started a little late, around 16, 17, I started playing the drums. So my first, I remember I went to the studio. This is very funny. It was a weird. I was an amateur and I had no clue. Went to the studio to record for my band single. We are very excited. First studio session, and we've practiced the song in and out, and everything's ready. And this guy plays the. And I went like, we never recorded that part. So I actually thought that was something that was going to be part of the song.
Music. Yeah.
In the music. And I told the engineer that we never recorded that part. How's that in the song? Because so he put the song in, he was using Nuendo back in the day, and he put it on. First thing he did was, he said that this is not on click. And we were like, what? We were never told that you have to bring something, and we actually wasted a whole like an
Wow.
8 hour session, completely wasted. We paid for nothing. We didn't get anything out of it. We came back disappointed because I was playing right with the band, with the members. But when he brought it on Click, he was like, the whole dummy
Yeah.
track that you guys have got does not match Click. And I was like, man, what is this? So that's where my journey started with the metronome. I was like, okay, so this is a metronome, this is a click. So I went
Right.
to the music store and we bought that little thing, and
Yeah.
yeah. So
It is that. It
yeah,
is, and it's not so much that it makes. I mean, you can. The thing is, a good drummer is not going to have time, even if time shifts, like with Stuart Copeland or Bonham,
Whew.
notorious of the time shifts in their playing. You
Yeah.
never feel like it's wrong. Like I think of like Trampled Underfoot with Led Zeppelin and bow bow da 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 da, and that groove that Bonham went ba 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 boom. When it gets to the solo, it easily shifts like 8 BPM faster,
Yeah,
and
yeah, for
it's
sure, for sure.
but you never
That's what
feel that's
that's
wrong,
what drive
you know.
that's what drives you inside also, because you want that 8 BPM rise also.
Is That's it. So it's
Yeah,
unnatural to
yeah.
not have this ebb and flow with the music. So I can imagine that first time for you. That's interesting because I was kind of, prepared for it in a way, like practice, like click tracks were definitely being used, but I can't
Yeah.
imagine that first time of hearing it. Like, wait, who's the dude that's just like, with a clave here?
Yeah, it was rather very, it was disturbing because that was the first time I heard that frequency, because I've never heard anything so non-musical being such an important
Non-musical,
part of
exactly.
music,
Right.
being such an important part of music now, you know. And I was almost, I mean, that night, I still remember because I had to hear that click throughout the day. For the next 8 hours, that's the only thing I heard. That tuck, tuck, tuck. And that guy was pretty, I mean, the engineer also was a little rude because he thought we were wasting his time.
Right.
I mean, we were paying for it anyway, but he
I
really
know
dialed
that
it in.
attitude. Yeah. Yeah.
He dialed it really in, and I had, like, sleep was a little problematic that night because I was like, man, the sound is really, and because I wasn't acquainted, I wasn't playing completely, because I remember coming back to my dad, and I had him listen to us playing at the pad, because he's always that human being who would come and tell me that no, maybe this, maybe that. So he came to
Right.
the pad the next day. We practiced, and he was like, no, you guys are fine on time. No one's dragging. You guys aren't pushing too much. So yeah, so that's our journey
Well,
with
could you
the
could you imagine a Indian classical recording of a raga of going in and putting a click track up? I mean,
impossible,
you
impossible.
know,
Yes, 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 yes.
and that's what I'm saying. It's like you would never think that. So why are has and it's because I remember this transition because I was actually in studios recording when this transition happened from the drummer's feel to a click track. I was
Oh
there, and
man.
I remember it was easier for the engineers. This is what got engineers and producers in the 80s to get the budgets they did, because they were the ones that had all this gear, and they convinced the
Ah.
record companies that it's like, if this guy can't do it, I got a machine here that can, and we won't have to spend 10 more hours of cost in the studio. I can get this done in a half hour if I program it. It was a cost issue, and it put
Oh.
the engineers and the producers ahead of the musicians, of the technology being more uh, uh, financially viable than paying the band for rehearsal time, for musicians, for things like that. So it was literally,
Man,
if
yeah.
you had to take 4 or 5 hours to get a track, and the label's paying for that, they don't want to do that for the engineer is saying, hey man, I can just put up a program a drum machine here, and nobody knows the difference. So why pay for it? So it was a real financial issue then, but it put the technological guys at the forefront ahead of the music, and that was the real shift. The drummers had to then get their loop station, their Simmons, and everything else to keep up with the technological times, and it was put on us to now start playing like a machine and having to compete with a machine. There was no guitar machine the guitar players had to compete against. So within 5 years of my career, my biggest obstacle, my competition, was not a better drummer. It was a fucking drum machine, you know?
Yeah,
So I had to learn to
yeah,
move fast. I
yeah,
had to go
yeah,
in there,
yeah.
get things in one take. I couldn't explore because it's like, wait a second, man, we're paying for this. We already have the drum
Exactly,
track programmed.
exactly.
So you better get this in 1 or 2 takes and do it. So in a
Exactly.
way, it made me a sharp player. But
Yeah.
it's just
Yes.
I think we're really in an age now to where a lot of now drummers even will spend hours talking about gear, technological gear, machines and pedals and pads and stuff, which are all useful. But man, what we're talking about here is the thing that I miss. Is like the flow of the universe, the flow of drummers' time and the synchronicity of a band playing together in real time. It's like, it's not a better or worse. It's just, I just miss it, man. It's so much more enjoyable to have that, you know,
Yeah, man.
like
For sure.
organic connection than this thing telling you, you're on or off and stuff.
Woo. I mean, for everyone sticking in, we've way past our 1 hour time, and we really, we've always, I mean, me and Greg, we always kind of let off, and this is
Yeah,
you
we
guys
do.
just being a part of the discussion. You guys are like, you have a third eye, and this kind of always happens. So we are almost to the end of the segment. We have a winner. So, Greg, we did a lucky draw of
Yeah, right.
whoever shared the poster. We got a lot of shares, so the guys at Gappu really had a hard time. So we did a lucky draw. So we have a system of chit picking, our which we do every afternoon before we do the live session. So our team, Anirvan, Pallav, they picked up a chit, and the name that came out today is Aditya.oke.drums. So,
Oh, I know.
oh,
We follow each other. Yeah,
oh,
yeah, he's a
oh,
great drummer, man.
wow,
Wow, that's
wow,
great.
wow.
Oh man, that's so funny. Somebody that I know. Yeah.
Yeah, this is, man, Aditya, you're damn lucky. You're really
Congrats,
lucky.
yeah, congratulations, Aditya.
So Aditya.oke.drums is
Yeah,
today's lucky winner. So Aditya, you get a flat 40% discount coupon on any product that you want to buy
fantastic.
from Gappu. And I think Gappu guys are really, I mean, this is I'm so humbled to be working with a team who's always pushing the bracket.
Yeah,
They're always not just pushing, but also for a beginner company to give out a 40% discount coupon means a
yeah,
lot, it means a lot.
yeah,
But they also not just want to be uh, top. I mean, they definitely want sales, but they also want the sound to spread around the world. And to have someone like you, Greg, it's really an honor. I mean, I'm lucky. I know you as a friend, but for the people, whoever's watching, and we'll save this, we will reshare this, and whoever will watch forever, this will float in the cyberspace.
yeah.
We feel eternally lucky that Greg gave us this time. Woke up, and the first thing that he did today was speak to Gappu Cajon and me. So just to end it, how are things in LA right now? What's the situation? What's the COVID
We're
situation
doing,
right now?
yeah, like everywhere. We it's up and down. And actually, in LA right now, we've had the highest cases in the last 6 months because of this Delta variant.
Oh,
And so
right
they've
now?
actually, yeah, right now it's gone up,
Oh,
and Florida, other states in the South are going up, and it's all unvaccinated people mostly that are getting it now.
man.
So we have a lot of people.
Have you got
Mask,
vaxxed?
yeah, I'm all vax. The family is too. So,
Same,
but
same.
they've reinstated mask policy indoors, and now people, because they're vaccinated, say I don't have to wear a mask, and this whole debate is coming up again. But it's nothing like it was. We did have a shift, but now there's a whole caution with flu season and coming up in the winter, and of if we're going to have another spike. But it's nothing like what you're dealing with in India. And I just know you guys have had a real rough go the last few
Yep,
months
yep,
here and stuff.
yep,
And
yep, yep, yep.
so many of
It's
my
been
friends and
very rough.
colleagues that I hear, and I just, so we're just waiting it out. I mean, it's been a very difficult year for all of us, and to not play live and not travel and not have that part of my life, just on a personal level, it's been extremely difficult. But we found new ways to connect like this, doing these sessions, and I've done some online rhythm sessions, some meditation workshops with my drumming, and found a way to connect with the community that still feels substantial. But I miss you guys. I miss just everything that we
Miss you
were,
guys too, man.
planning on doing and stuff too. But it's now just sending, love and prayers to everybody who's dealing with this right now.
It's just I think right now being alive is okay. That's more
Yeah,
than
exactly.
it.
Yeah, let's not get greedy anymore right now. Yeah, let's just say
it's been very tough for here in Calcutta,
I know.
in Maharashtra and Bombay. I mean, when I was in Bombay, it was unbelievable. I've never seen Bombay like that. It's a city that it's always alive. You always have
Right.
millions of people walking around. And I remember there was one day in the middle of the lockdown this year, not one soul on the road in the middle of the afternoon. It was just almost post-apocalyptic. It was just I really wish that the generation that comes, they never have to see. Nobody has to see anything like
I
this,
know.
Greg. I mean,
Yeah,
nobody
I
deserves
agree.
to see. For musicians like us who are right now reaching a point in our career,
Right.
we've completely dropped. You know,
Yeah.
we actually are clueless because this is the age that we do. As you were saying, we do world tours. We meet
Yeah.
more musicians. You're moving around, but that kind of never. I mean, 2020 was supposed to be
No,
a great year, but that didn't happen. But
I
I'm
love
sure
that somebody,
things will get.
someone commented on that to you. Someone commented saying 2020 never happened, Sammy. There is no 2020. That's just
Oh man,
quabbing.
yes,
That's funny.
yeah, I really hope that we don't face this ever. So, whoever's watching this, please maintain safety, stay safe, wash your hands, wear your masks, get vaccinated, please, if possible. Doesn't matter if your vaccine doesn't allow you to go to Europe right now, but get vaccinated because the vaccines hopefully will be accepted.
Yeah, sorry,
You
man. I
can
see.
get.
I
No,
slacked
no,
myself
sorry,
away there.
please. No, I was just saying that please, everybody get vaxxed,
Yeah.
stay safe, wash your hands, keep washing your hands, wear your masks whenever you go out in a public space. I know it's uncomfortable, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, but just
For,
do it. You know, there's so much of life. Seatbelts are uncomfortable, everything else to protect us. I mean, it's just like, just do it. It's not a political issue. It's not a civil rights or personal rights issue. It's like, it's taking care of each other, man. If somebody needed help carrying groceries, you'd help them out. Like, put on a mask.
exactly.
It's not that difficult. And I think it's gotten into this whole other discussion. So I agree. Let's just do this and get over with so we can see each other again, man.
Yeah, yeah. For sure. A lot of love to you. Send us your blessings. Hope we meet soon. Hope we meet
Yeah.
soonest, man. We really need to do this. And I'm sure I'm going to bug Aditya for the next 1 year. Till that happens, I'm going to keep
Well,
doing it. So,
and Anirban and everybody at Gappu, I can't wait for my cajon because I got a lot of things to use it on. I've been doing a lot of video game work here with Sony PlayStation games. I've done the last couple God of War games, and I've been using another brand which I don't
wow.
want to, and so I really am anxious to get my Gappu because I want to spread the word here too, and hopefully they can find a market that can keep them growing too because I really appreciate everything they're doing.
Yes, yes. A lot of love
Yeah.
to Kapu and everyone at Gapu. And we're signing off here. Thank you, Greg, again.
All right,
Thank
my
you
friend.
for giving us your
Pleasure.
time. And yeah, hope to see you soon, man. Hope to
We'll
see
see
you
you
soon.
soon, my brother. Take care.
Take care. Bye. Have a good day.